go from there. And here we are, live again. And
Awesome.
welcome to the PT Graduate. Rich here from PT Graduate. And I'm interviewing Paul Todd today. Good to see you, Paul. Thanks for tuning in and giving us a little bit of your time.
Thanks, Rich. My pleasure, mate. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, good. Great. So you're a Christchurch lad, born and bred, is that right?
Correct, yeah. Most people come in here.
Yeah. And how did you get into the industry? What was your pathway in terms of where you've got to today?
Yeah, so I remember, I guess I left school with not too much direction in terms of what I wanted to do. I kind of understood what I was kind of good at and what I enjoyed around the sort of physical activity and sport and sort of PE and those sort of things. But it wasn't until I went away and did a couple of labouring jobs for a year, left school, and probably that was the kick in the pants I needed to actually make sure I got a little bit of direction in life, and that was kind of a nice little reminder of what things could look like if you don't go and study. And I just remember one day and I saw a poster on the wall for a fitness industry training course. So effectively that was kind of the start of it. So I did a 6-month course at the local polytechnic at the time, and that was I think 16 years ago now. So I cracked on that. I think I got a job as a gym instructor initially. Probably for about 18 months, and then I had a good mate of mine who was leaving the gym as a trainer. He was going overseas to play rugby, and he said to me, "Would you like to take over my business?" So I kind of got a little, I kind of started off with a few clients actually, which is quite nice. So I didn't have that real, no clients, sort of high overheads type situation. I didn't have a huge business, but I had something to keep me going anyway for a start. So we kicked off.
Nice, fantastic. Do you think that time initially as the gym instructor that you talked about, sort of 18 months or so, was that good time? Was that a useful period of your learning?
Yeah, I believe so. For me, I was only 19 when I started in the industry. So, really naive, I wouldn't have been in a position, I think, to run a business well. So, just to spend some time actually getting an understanding of what the gym industry is like, what people expect from you, just growing confidence from a communication perspective. I think all those things kind of, I was really passionate about it, so I had that. But there's always little bits of detail that you, at 19, I mean, I can't speak for every 19-year-old, but certainly from my perspective, I wasn't ready to kind of run a business and understand what that took and that sort of thing. So I really valued it.
Yeah, good experience. So, and you talked about a rugby mate who was already in the industry, and he was going overseas to play. So were you immersed in that rugby scene as a player yourself as well?
Yep. Yeah. So I played footy right through until I retired through due to concussions probably about 10 years ago now. So I played up until about 2000 and what are we now? It must have been 2009, 2010. So I played rugby all my life. So that was definitely part of perhaps my interest in the sports side of things. I think in the early days of my personal training, I focused on that sort of athlete development, sports conditioning. Was probably the title we used a lot back then. And a lot of work in sort of upskilling myself around, speed development and, sports specific kind of conditioning for different sports, and rugby is probably a big part of that. So definitely a passion of mine at the time and something I was still quite interested in, but it certainly formulated my my early interest in my direction of my business as well.
So that's continued in terms of that sort of sports conditioning and working with athletes, or are there still a number of those as your clients?
Not so much these days. So I probably did that for what they've been. I'll probably say the first 5 or 6 years I was very much invested in that side of things. And a lot of it had to do with what I was doing currently. So a lot of my clients were people I knew or mates who are involved in the game and stuff like that. So I was spending a lot of time immersed in that area myself. So that sort of was a natural progression. But a couple of roles came up around sort of just generally in nice little small health clubs. And so I kind of took those on. They seemed like nice career progressions at the time. And as a general kind of shift away from the top people, I tend to work more general population these days. And probably since then more in that kind of corrective exercise sort of, movement, kind of corrective health space. So that's kind of what I do a lot more of now. I still do a little bit of work with athletes, but it's mainly in that area of kind of problem solving, chronic injuries, and I'm kind of one that sort of works behind the scenes trying to get into a position where they can perform well, I suppose, and less of the high performance stuff.
Sure. And so did you move locations at some point to where you are now?
I did, yeah. So I used to work in a gym called Olympus Health and Fitness, which is where we started off in Christchurch. And as part of that, the owners of the gym actually owned another smaller gym called the Heritage Health Club. So as a trainer, we used to operate at both facilities, and the Heritage was a small sort of boutique, kind of high-end facility, which at the time was reasonably rare. Certainly in Christchurch, there wasn't a lot of those sort of facilities, so we had quite a niche product. And what actually happened probably 2 or 3 years into my career is that the Heritage component got sold off, and so we were kind of forced to kind of this idea of which way do you go. Olympus was being sold, Heritage was being sold. Fortunately, the people who were buying the Heritage were quite keen on keeping me around, so they offered me a personal training or manager of personal trainers type role. And so that was kind of the ticket into that situation. And then, so yeah, a couple of years down the track, the same people got an opportunity to run another small health club, which is being built by a private members club at the time. And that's where I am today. So it's called the Worcester Health Club. So I worked at both for a few years, and the earthquake happened. During the earthquake, both facilities were closed for about 12 months. So Heritage maybe for 18 months. And in that period of time, I'd got reasonably busy just getting the gym, the Worcester Health Club, which I actually managed, sort of up and running. So when the Heritage kind of reopened, I just said, the idea of working at two places probably doesn't work for me as well as it used to. So that's been So I've been at the Worcester Health Club now for maybe 12 years, but sort of just working there on its own for probably since the earthquake. So what's that, 10 years now? So yeah. Okay. When you start like that, it sounds like a long time.
Becoming an old hat. So what sort of took you down that path in terms of the corrective stuff, the getting people in a condition so that they can perform well? What was the interest in following that pathway as such?
It's a good question. I think probably two things. Well, the first one is when I started to work more with general population, I'd see the differences in how people actually perform, and so you'd see the difference in how people are looking after themselves. You might have a bit of background noise there.
School holidays, eh?
So I'd see you certainly see a difference in how people are looking after themselves and how they're performing. You can certainly see the influence that their health was having on their performance.
Yeah.
And so I kind of thought there's got to be a slightly different approach here. I started looking a bit differently. I was being presented with people who weren't functioning well, weren't performing well.
Yeah.
And so my approach, which was very much along that athletic development line, wasn't working as well as what it had in the past.
Okay.
The second catalyst was actually when we had our first child, Benson. So he's 6.5 now. And so all of a sudden I went from sort of, I guess, that somewhat bulletproof mentality where, everything I did always worked well for me, to now my sleep kind of pulled from under me, a bit more involved in the lifestyle. And all of a sudden sort of my approach to my own conditioning and my own health and fitness wasn't working as well as it had in the past. And so that led me to start thinking, okay, is there a different approach? I do need to look into this side of things a bit deeper. Happened to go to Australia for a wee holiday about 6 months after Benson was born.
Yeah.
And just while I was over there, I thought, I'm going to look up Dave Leo, who I'd seen present a few times at those sorts of places. And I felt like I'd just go and chat to him about things. He's an interesting guy. The stuff I'd heard him speak about is certainly, been quite fascinating in the past. And that was sort of the catalyst for me to start following Dave as have him as a mentor and look under the Kaizen banner for a few years and get some education. It started to get me thinking a bit more holistically, probably, is to put a term around it, I suppose, overall.
Yeah. Interesting, that change of life scenario for you with kids is it's just very real, very everyday, in terms of shifting from being, double income, no kids, to, suddenly starting to obviously have kids, but then having to manage your time, your energy. It's so relatable for everybody, our clients, and the impact that has on your energy and, the way in which you look after yourself and so on. So, that general pop client market that you're kind of working with can identify with that with you, I guess. It's you're not necessarily an athlete that would be an intimidating kind of person to work with, I imagine. So being relatable makes you so much more, I guess, accessible and normal to people that would be interested in working with people like ourselves.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think probably up until that point in time in my life, I probably didn't really have the understanding of what these people were dealing with. You'd sort of, because I wasn't experiencing myself, I wasn't asking the right questions. I wasn't, I didn't understand which questions to ask. So that was a real positive for me. Penny, did she go back? Penny? Yeah. Played out down the road. So look, for me, it was a real, probably, it now allowed me to kind of get an understanding, okay, this is what these people are doing, but I can understand it's probably a maturing of my mindset and from my perspective actually allowed me to kind of operate from a different banner. And I guess I'd probably attracted the type of clients that did want to perform well because of my approach. So I felt like I fell into quite a powerful area where you could kind of unlock the sort of key to the performance for a lot of my clients that were trying hard. They wanted the performance. They come from a high performing background, but they were missing something, and that was where that more holistic approach to that looking outside where came into it.
And talking about performance, because you collaborate with a guy who's sort of in that corporate training space, don't you? And you guys bring together your complementary experience and skills to deliver I guess education and knowledge in that corporate space. Is that something that you enjoy as a component of your working week or month or whenever?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably David Bennett and I put together like some programs in the past where him and I take the sort of, I guess, the health side of it. He takes the sort of leadership coaching, the mind side of it. We mash the two together, come up with a approach which actually people can apply to their lives. I've sort of found that I've done a bit of education stuff in the past. You'd be delivering people some information around how to perform better from a health perspective, but at times you sort of felt like there was some missing keys around understanding behaviour change and understanding how to see change in that behavioural space. And so what David brought to the table was a nice academic, research-backed, evidence kind of based solution, which kind of said, well, here's what the evidence shows around what people need to do to see behaviour change. Here's what's necessary for a culture or an environment or a team or a workplace to actually see some successful change in behaviour. And so we're able to kind of educate people on this sort of line and apply the health stuff at the same time. And so we found, you're giving people the actual information they need to apply the information you're trying to give them. And that was probably, it seems to me like a more successful model. At the end of the day, you're still relying on people actually wanting to make change. So I don't think you've had everybody, but I feel like it's been a good learning curve for me. So I've been able to apply a lot of the stuff I learned from working with David into my own practice as well. So it's definitely helped me sort of add some of that a bit more mind and performance aspect from that from the time with him, definitely.
Brilliant. And are there other aspects? I know you guys you do the group thing as well, so you have classes sort of throughout your week. Is that is that another complementary aspect to your business that's been going for the same duration, or did that come first or second?
Yes, we started a small group training program primarily after the earthquake, actually. So I was doing one small group training session called Fight Club. I did that a couple of times a week, just a group of guys that had just been born out of just a random phone call, actually. So I started in that probably in 2008, 2009. And then just happened to be after the earthquake when people's exercising was a wee bit up in the air. And someone kind of came to me and said, hey, my wife would be really keen to start a session, something similar for a group of her friends. And next thing you know, we had sort of over 50 people a week coming along to the session. So it grew pretty quickly. It wasn't anything I had a real passion about at the time, but we just got some really cool people coming along. I could see the benefit it was having in the community, especially at that time. Role it was playing in kind of getting people some normality and giving them some structure in their week when they had so much uncertainty. So it's just to this day, it's not quite as big as these days. I kind of simplified it a little bit because it was taking a lot of time running it. And it's probably, I'm probably more interested in the sort of the personal side of things. But it was these days we do probably outdoor group. What do I do? 1, 2, 3, I do 6 sessions a week, a small group. So we do one every day during the school teams. The school teams off, the school holidays off. So I think one of the fundamentals of my business is, or my values of my business is to have some variety. And I think that whilst we're quite specific in our niche and our philosophy around how we look after people, I actually quite like the idea of having, some personal stuff, working closely with some people, having some small group work where you're able to sort of, you're able to get out into the community and reach a large number or a larger audience. And like you said, some of our education program as well. So it keeps what I do interesting. It means I don't get too stale. It means your time trying to juggle a wee bit, but it means you're actually, you're looking in different areas, so it keeps you quite rounded in terms of your approach. Overall. I've always found it's interesting. It keeps me from getting too stale or getting too one-track minded or getting too far down one path, and just you're seeing other people, you're seeing what they're facing, seeing the challenges. So it keeps you thinking. Keeps you asking yourself questions around your direction and your education, your approach. So,
yeah. I like it, and I think, as you say, that variety is good for on a number of levels, and particularly from a business point of view, from a cash flow point of view, because the flow from those different activities is different, right? So the dollar quantities are different. The frequency would probably be different as well compared to the one-on-one stuff or the corporate stuff. So you combine them all together as one business, and you've got a more resilient business because those cash flows are different. And if something happened to an aspect of your business, it's possible that you may be able to lean on another part more so until things change or develop more in a different direction. It sort of have a multiple benefit, doesn't it, for you and participants, as well as sustainability.
Absolutely, man. Like you say, we're not exposed to the market in just one particular area. Certainly from a price perspective, we've got, people can enter and have an exposure to what we're doing on a number of different levels, financially. So I think that sort of future-proofs your business a little bit. COVID was a great example of that, where we ended up, probably the small group stuff would probably usually make up maybe 15 or 10 to 15% of the turnover a week, and all of a sudden it was kind of like 30 or 40% because it was the easiest one to kind of jump online and say, hey guys, we're doing it at the same times, it's pretty much the same. I'll be online, you'll be in your own lounge instead of out in the park. It was real seamless. So you really relied on those sort of situations, and you recognised again that sort of role you play within the community in those tough times to kind of keep people, and the amount of people who come up to us afterwards and say, hey, you just you were the consistency in that inconsistent time, or that certainty uncertain times. So and again, people could still afford to pay you $10 a session, or I think I charge them $20 a week or something like that, to sort of come to the party a little bit, say, hey, just make it nice and easy for you guys. And it looked beneficial, gave me some peace of mind, helped me sleep at night. And you can see the benefit on the other side for everyone as well. Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah, and that's a perfect example of what I meant about, leaning on one part, because you could convert it to an online experience quickly, and it's something that people needed, right? They still had that virtual connection, but they still had that connection and that consistent activity. And obviously we know the benefits of exercise from a mental health point of view as well. So it's like tick. So brilliant. Top tips. What are the sorts of things that you would advise that 19-year-old that you talked about at the beginning? What would you say coming in would be useful plans or behaviors to sort of set up for a more successful career, if it was going to be a career choice rather than something to try, into the future?
Good question. I think probably, I've always found that relationships are the key part to any business. So, think about, who you need to form good relationships with, understand your clients are your clients, but also other potential sort of backbone of your business, not just in that moment going forward. Key people are going to, become long-term clients, are going to refer you a lot of work. They might refer you different aspects of work and things like that. So, make sure you treat people really well, develop and build long-term relationships that actually will fundamentally form. I've had clients I've looked after for north of 10 years, quite a few of them. And, you work with them, opportunities come out of the situation, they come out of the relationship, and they're not referring you new clients all the time, but they're often the ones who, if they own a business, next you're doing something with their team, or next their son's develops in a sport, and you're looking after their son, or you're looking after 2 or 3 of them. And so you work out over the years that there'll be sort of maybe 5 people that you actually meet along the way that actually really will become that key relationship and form backbone of your business. I think probably the key thing I would say is to any young trainer is understand you can make a career out of this as well. And so I think, probably for the first 3 or 4 years for me, I was never really thinking this is going to be something I did forever. And it wasn't until I went back and studied, I did a couple of university papers in management and marketing, and just realised it's actually the practical side of this that I'm actually passionate about. I don't want a job where I'm, and start taking it seriously, and hey, you can do well out of it, not just financially, but you can actually make a really good business, really good career out of this too. So, if you are young, think to yourself, well, if I want to do this for 10 or 15 or 20 years, what do I actually have to do to ensure this is going to work for me? Because I know when I was young, it's great. You've got a good income, when you've got no responsibility. Once you've got, some kids and a mortgage and those sorts of things, well, all of a sudden, your income that you had when you're 19 doesn't look quite so healthy. So have a think to yourself, what does this need to look like financially? What does it need to look like from a business perspective if I'm going to do this long term, so I can actually do well for myself. So, it's more than just a good lifestyle. Lifestyle is probably what I would say to young trainers. Starts off looking like a good lifestyle, earn well when you're young, but, you think, well, in 10 years' time, will you still be earning well? And how do you need to earn well to make sure this is a good long-term prospect? And then the one's been big for me is education. So I've dedicated a lot of, my time and also my turnover into further educating myself or skilling. Make sure you've got some good mentors, and not just good mentors, but good colleagues you can bounce ideas off as well. See other trainers as colleagues, not competitors, so you can share ideas. There's more than enough people out there for everyone. It's just a case of making sure that you actually understand your point of difference or create a point of difference for yourself by, finding a niche that you're passionate about. Whether it's a niche market or a niche philosophy, I'm probably more down the niche philosophy side of things, where I'm thinking, we approach the way we look after people the same, regardless of what format, but we don't necessarily look after one specific part of the population. So, you can get another angle. I've gone more down the variety angle in terms of who I look after, but my approach is quite niche in terms of the way we actually, look at things quite a holistic angle and the different angles we look at. So, keep investing in education, but have an idea of where you want to take it to. You don't just kind of dabble a wee bit at the start. I think when you're young, you want to sort of find out if you can do this for 10 years or so or more. You actually want to find something you're passionate about. So, but I mean, these days there's so much access to good quality education out there that you can create a really good market for yourself in a specific niche if you're into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just going back a minute. So you talked about looking after those relationships or those relationships being really, really important. And I couldn't agree more, because that's the foundation really of our business, that's those soft skills. Are there any examples or any specifics you can think of that have worked for you to help people understand, what they could actually do practically to maintain those relationships that might last for 10 years? Because that's a decent amount of time for someone. That wasn't just, I need to get ready for a half marathon or whatever it might be. There's some serious that's a long 10-year relationship. So any sort of tips that you might be able to share that that have worked for you from that maintaining relationship point of view?
It's a good question, actually. I guess from the practical perspective, it's having a skill set which allows you to kind of be flexible around the way you're looking after somebody. So, if you've only got that, if you're limited in your knowledge base, then, how do you look after someone's training and conditioning for 10 years? Because things are going to ebb and flow. It's not like you're doing all the time. There's lots of times when you're doing this or you're doing that. And so how you work through those, how you communicate to that person, those times when actually you're not getting the outstanding results you once did. But you're still moving, or you're preventing a decline, or you're still moving in a direction. It's just a different direction, but you need to be able to communicate that really well. And so people understand that, you're not always getting outstanding results, but maybe during or in that moment, you are getting outstanding results because that person's got some challenges, or, they're going through a stage of life, which means that, a half marathon's not on the cards. So probably say that's one aspect of it. And then from the relationship perspective, it's just, you just got to find that common ground, understand what drives people, understand what they're passionate about, and show interest in it. You don't have to everything they're into, but you know what your clients are passionate about, and so you need to be able to communicate with them, talk to them. You spend an hour or 45 minutes or half an hour with somebody every week or every fortnight. Well, you got to get on with things. You got to really have some interesting things to talk about, and I think it's a big part of that. It's actually, from a trainer's perspective, understanding what someone else is passionate about. And then actually, going in and actually getting a bit of information about that stuff too. So, I think long term you'll end up close to those people who you share similar passions with. But at the same time, even if you're not passionate about the same things, well, show interest in what people are passionate about. If they're interested in business, well, ask questions, learn off people. Like everyone loves talking about themselves, everyone loves passing on knowledge. So think about those opportunities where you can learn from your clients, because a lot of cases they're good at something, and even if you're not greatly passionate about what they're good at, learn from them. It might be another stage on the track where you learned something 10 and 5 years ago that comes when you have children. You got mums or something, ask questions about raising kids, things like that. Mums love talking about that. If you're 20, 21, you're gonna have a child, at the time you're thinking this is kind of useful information, not really, but hey, at some stage it will be. Business is a great one. Some guys that are really well in business, and I'd ask them questions. just, branding questions, marketing questions. And even if the businesses seem like they don't relate, well, there'll be similarities, there'll be reasons why their business works, and you can grasp stuff from there. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it does. It's good. It's good because I mean, it's an obvious thing, but everybody does it differently, and so having some good examples, I think that's good. I mean, I guess the message I get is that it's about that curiosity, and it's about making them, front and center, and putting their interests at the center of everything that you do, so that they feel heard, they feel listened to, and that you're genuinely interested in their lives rather than just their money.
Yeah, probably. I think I'd probably add to that is just watch complacency. So those people that you work with, closely, and they feel like they turn up every week regardless. You just got to watch. You don't get complacent. You got to keep asking questions. Hey, how you feeling about what we're doing? Is anything we can do differently? Just be. I'm always a big fan of open communication. Just ask people. Because what you don't want is you don't want a sort of underlying discontent to build up where. I've seen in the past when I've mentored trainers, they just get a bit comfortable with those people that are there every single week. And so just ensure that, if there will be periods of time where you're not seeing outstanding results necessarily, but make sure you're talking and communicating to the client and just making sure that, that they're feeling good about what you're doing, or if they feel like this can be done differently, just always say, don't be afraid of the feedback. You'd rather have some negative feedback that you can do something about than finding out left and then it's too late, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. That's a real gem, I reckon. Nice one, Paul. Anything I didn't ask? Anything that's sort of on your mind that you think, oh, actually, this is probably something we didn't cover that we should have done? Is anything jumping out? Or
no, I think one thing we probably emphasise quite significantly in what we've done over the years is around that sort of idea of setting goals around sort of this process orientated versus outcome orientated. And so trainers might be doing it well, but I know a big thing we sort of emphasise, particularly on the education side of things, is getting people emphasise put their focus around the details that actually make a difference long term. So a lot of people come to you with a goal or an outcome that's something they want to try and achieve, and we try and center them right back to the basics around what does that look like on a day-to-day basis. So they're kind of getting very regular feedback on, hey, I'm actually being successful here. They're not waiting until a moment in time to sort of draw their entire success of the whole process. So weekly weigh-in or the monthly weigh-in, don't try and draw the whole success of the whole program to sort of that moment in kind of, regardless of which way it goes, there's been a whole lot of stuff achieved or not achieved along the way. So we try and draw people back to the, what does it look like tomorrow morning when you wake up? What are your actions going to be? What is it, what are the small things you're going to do differently to ensure that in a month's time when we assess, this outcome or this goal you're trying to achieve, we're kind of going to guarantee it's going to be successful because you've ticked all the boxes along the way. So it's something I'm big on, and just I think it gets people thinking regularly about what they're doing well, as opposed to just kind of, they're on the right track or they're on the wrong track, and get into that assessment time, so to speak, and just kind of then getting excited or disappointed without much actual feedback on what's actually gone there along the way.
I love that. That's a really good one, because we can get so hung up on day 1 and day 90 and none of the days in between, and yes, obviously the stuff that happens, but if we don't put more of a focus on what happens between 1 and 90, we're only ever thinking about the end goal, and that's not how life really works, is it? It is about it's about the 10 1%ers rather than the 1 10%.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so those, and if you're relying on 1 10, you're probably less likely to be successful than if you have 10 1s, because 2 or 3 or 4 of those are probably going to have a bit of a drop off and a pick up and a drop off and a pick up, but you're still gradually making progress, even though it's not always all 10, making progress.
And also people are going to end up beyond the assessment or the outcome with some skill set they can carry on with. They've sort of learned what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. They're not just kind of, I've got here, sort of blindly, so to speak, without much understanding as to why. They kind of know exactly what it, where the challenges have come across the way, but also what they've done well along the way too. So they, following day, they kind of wake up and go, well, I know what I need to do now because I've done it well. 90% or 80% of the time, they can draw it down to what do I have for breakfast, or what do I do first thing in the morning to send my mind in the right space for the rest of the day. So you kind of feel like you're setting people up with the skill set which works for the long term.
Brilliant. You're equipping them with skills and knowledge rather than them relying on you to give them the solution.
A bit more empowering, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we're pretty close to 12:30, and I think we started before 12, so that's good. We've got some good meat in the sandwich there, Paul. Thank you. It's great. It's been great to catch up and pick your brains and hear your wisdom.
No, thanks, mate. Appreciate the opportunity. It's great what you do, mate. So anyone who's listening, just it's an awesome opportunity to listen to Red Chain. He's got some great knowledge and some good long-term ideas on what you need to do to be successful. So take his advice. It's outstanding.
Thanks, Paul. So you're findable at advancedfitness.co.nz if people are looking for you.
Correct. Yep.
Brilliant.
That's it. So we've got Advanced Fitness. We're not. We do have a Facebook page. I wouldn't say we're the most active. So Fitness on Facebook, or Advanced Fitness Christchurch on Facebook. Paul Advanced Fitness. If you're interested in what we do.
Yeah. Magic. All right. Great stuff. Thanks for your time, and I'll catch you soon.
Magic. Thanks, Rich. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.